January has a reputation. New year, new goals, new plans, new pressure. But that's not actually what it's about. That's not what this month is meant for. January isn't a starting line, it's the integration point. Hello, and welcome to Torches, Yoga, and Mindfulness. I'm Lauren, and I'll be your coach. Today, we are taking a mindful pause to say goodbye to December and 2025, and hello to January and 2026, to move forward with intention instead of just getting swept away by life. This is Living Mindfully. And if you are interested in mindfulness, healing, and practical habits for life that actually work, you're in the right place. Here we focus on simple but powerful practices grounded in ancient wisdom and modern science to care for both our minds and bodies. So go ahead, hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Right now, we are coming off October, November, and December, and these months have asked a lot of us. Reflection, release, reckoning, and thankfully, then some rest. We let some things fall away and maybe found some truths that surfaced. And maybe we even closed some chapters on our life, even if it was quietly and unannounced. So, if you're coming into January feeling a little raw, slower, or maybe less motivated than you thought you should be, just know nothing is wrong. And this is your reminder that those shoulds are red flags and reminders to offer ourselves or others a little compassion. January is about weaving together what has already shifted. This month asks us, what is it that we want to carry forward? What still actually fits? Historically, January wasn't about big expansion. It was about survival, conservation, and discernment. Food storages were watched carefully, movements were slowed and intentional, and quiet plans were being made. This is a threshold month, like standing in a doorway. The ancient Romans even had their god Janus as a symbol of the month, and he was a guardian of thresholds, depicted with two heads, one looking forward and the other looking back at what was at the same time. And that's kind of the invitation that January offers. Not rushing ahead, but moving forward while understanding what we are bringing with us. Early January comes with an energy for foundation, structure, and long-term sustainability. This energy asks us to consider what it is that actually holds me up. What systems or practices do I have that truly support me over time? This is where we focus on what is working in our lives. Maybe that's on a broad, big picture scale or in our daily lives. If there's a practice, activity, or even a responsibility that you find in your daily or your weekly routine that just fills you with dread before you even have to do it, and afterwards it leaves you feeling drained, maybe it's time to find an alternative approach or leave that behind you altogether. If there is part of your routine that you look forward to, it leaves you feeling uplifted, focus on that and consider if there are ways that you can integrate that same kind of energy into other aspects of your routine. This isn't about what you think your life should look like, but it's about a life that supports your truth and wholeness. Later in the month, after we've refreshed our foundations with alignment, we feel a burst of visionary energy. Maybe for you, that comes as a spark of inspiration for a new venture or craft. Maybe it draws you to your community or inspires you to set solid plans. Maybe it's a reminder for you that just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it still needs to be done that way. January holds both of these energies at once: structure and creative vision, discipline and imagination. And we're not meant to choose one or the other. It's about mindfully holding both and weaving them together. January carries really rich symbolism to help us with our integration phase. So I have some stones with me here that I would use in my practice. If you would like to use them, incorporate them into yours. And I also want to share some correspondences that I don't have on hand, but first I want to talk about one of my absolute favorite stones, and that is garnet. I brought her out here before. How do I do this? Here we go. I carry a couple different ones for different meanings. But it's garnet is said to be a stone of vitality, strength, protection, and even said to be a guiding light. I have one in my car because it's said to protect the traveler and promises a safe return home. Moonstone is another stone for January, deeply tied to intuition, emotional balance, and lunar wisdom. And it reminds us that clarity doesn't always arrive logically. Sometimes it's a quiet feeling, a spark of inspiration while we're just going about the regular day-to-day tasks. And also, long throughout history, animals have been seen as symbols of the month's virtues. So for January, we have the owl representing the ability to see clearly in the dark. The bear reminds us of rest and conserving energy, and the wolf speaks to instinct, loyalty, and trusting our inner guidance, even when the path isn't obvious. Carnation is the flower of January, symbolizing endurance, devotion, and resilience through the harsh winter. And spiritually, January carries a natural resonance with the ancient Grecian Titan goddess Hecate, a guardian of thresholds, a torchbearer in the dark, and a guide through transitions. All right, moving on. This isn't a time for an overhaul, but instead integration. You may be asking, what does that look like? And I got you. January isn't a time for pushing harder, it's a time for paying attention. Instead of asking yourself, what do I want to accomplish this month? Try asking, what am I integrating? For you, that may look like having a realization that you just don't have the same tolerance that you used to. Maybe you don't want to tolerate over-explaining yourself, being endlessly available to others, or relationships or environments that leave you feeling drained. So, maybe you're integrating a boundary or a sovereign principle and noticing how it feels to actually live inside that principle or boundary. Or maybe for you, the integration is more emotional. You might notice you don't spiral off the way you used to because you become more aware of your thoughts. Maybe when something does activate you in a negative way, maybe now you find your recovery time is shorter or that your self-critique is a little less harsh. Sometimes integration is identity-based. Maybe you're integrating the truth that you're not the person you were 5 years ago, and that some roles you carried before, no matter how long you've carried them, they just don't quite fit anymore. Sometimes it shows up as grief, and we may not even have words for the specific thing we're grieving, but our body remembers, and it just knows that now is finally a safe time to process through with feeling something that we ignored in the past. The acts of integration aren't the profound, big gesture type. Maybe for you, it's just quieter mornings, making time for intentional rest and creativity, or being more honest with yourself about what you want and not what you think you should want. So, if you haven't already started your daily check-in practice, now is the time to start it. If you did already start it and maybe you forgot, you fell off track, that's okay. This is your reminder. This is the most accessible, easiest practice to support not just our integration phase, but our intuition and overall well-being. You can make it a quick 60-second practice or a full 5-minute meditation. I do suggest scheduling your check-in with yourself about the same time every day. Mornings are best, but any time will work. Do a quick body scan. Gradually bring your attention to each area of your body, starting at your toes and working your way up. With your attention settled into your body or your breath, check in with yourself. Maybe you already know what questions to ask. Maybe in this integration phase, you ask, what has shifted for me in the past few months? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What feels more stable and true than it used to? All right, friend, another practice I offer for your consideration is instead of setting a resolution, because you already know how I feel about those, but instead of a resolution, choose one word for January. Not something performative, but something aligning. Let your actions gently orient around that word. Small, consistent actions are the path to true change and embodiment. If journaling is part of your practice, please consider these prompts, and you can come back to them anytime throughout the month. I will leave them down in the description below. But consider, what am I integrating rather than fixing? What expectations about growth am I ready to let go of? What already works that I want to nourish this year? And where am I being invited to move slowly and on purpose? All right, friend, if you are looking for bright, fun ways to sprinkle in mindful reminders throughout your month, make sure to check out daysoftheyear.com. They're still not supporting this or sponsoring this, but according to them, January is Be on Purpose month. I love this. I love this. Not hustle, not grind, not on point, just on purpose. Connecting with our purpose is the core of mindful living. It asks this, does this goal, action, person, environment, whatever it is, does it align with and support the life I want to live? Or is it tied to an outdated version of who I thought I needed to be? I love that. A simple little mantra for the month. Be on purpose. Okay, January 6th is National Cuddle Day, which may sound silly, and it is, but it's also deeply regulating. It's connection, warmth, and touch. It releases oxytocin and helps calm our nervous system. And it counts whether it's with a partner, kids, pets, or even if you just wrap yourself in a blanket for a moment of intentional rest. And then we have January 9th, it's Quitter's Day. Statistically, it's the day when about 80% of all New Year's resolutions have already been abandoned. And if you remember from the New Year, Not New You video we did, this matters. Because if your resolution or your goal for the year already feels forgotten, that doesn't mean you failed. You didn't fail the resolution. The resolution failed you. Adjusting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. January 13th is Make Your Dream Come True Day. And this is another one I really love. This isn't about achieving the dream all at once in this one day. It's about bringing it out of the dreamscape and into your reality. Maybe you've had some idea or dream that you've told yourself is unrealistic, or you don't have time for it, or no one else would understand. Now is the time to stop dismissing it and start making a plan for it. Sit down with pen and paper and write out, acknowledge the big picture idea of your dream, and then break it down into smaller parts, little tasks. Maybe there are real world constraints that would keep you from accomplishing that initial dream. But maybe there are ways you can incorporate pieces of its essence into your daily routines. Like, I am definitely not going to be a rock star this year. I'm not going to blow up as a rock star, even if I set my mind and all my energy towards it. I haven't played an instrument in well over a decade, and I only sing in the car behind closed windows. And honestly, even sitting in front of the camera every week to record for you guys still gives me stage fright. But meeting like-minded people, picking up an instrument practice, and sharing happiness and joy with groups of small people, or small groups of people, by showing up as my best selves, those carry the same essence, and they are doable. So January 13th is time to pull your dream out of the dreamscape and start living it. Not making a plan to get you to point B, but making a plan of a path to a lived experience, to the journey. All right, while I was flipping through daysoftheyear.com, I noticed something that was a little too good to be true to be a coincidence. So January is National Soup Month, which feels exactly right. With the colder weather, maybe you're in an area that's been getting some snow. And then there's that felt sense of ties to our ancestral memory of nourishment mattering deeply. Soup has always been a food of deep nourishment, not just for our bodies, but for our souls as well. So the it can't be a coincidence part to me is that January 19th is Brew a Potion Day. And you cannot tell me that soup isn't a magic potion. Maybe your mom, partner, or a loved one makes you soup when you're sick. So they choose ingredients with intention, they stir in love, and they offer it to you in hopes of boosting your health. So maybe on the 19th, you brew a potion of soup, or stew like the healers in our lives do. Or maybe for you, that looks like brewing a cup of tea, choosing ingredients that uplift and support your overall well-being, and stirring it clockwise to bring in your intentions. Maybe even mix some fresh herbs or oils like chamomile and lavender for a sleep potion to use at night, or citrus and lemongrass to motivate your mornings. Okay, in the US, January 19th also honors the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a champion for justice, unity, and meaningful change. His work reminds us that compassion is not passive, that care and courage can coexist, and that integrity in our daily lives matters. Let this day invite reflection on how you embody justice, kindness, and responsibility in your own way, in your life, and in your community. January 25th is another perfect mindful tie-in, and that is a room of one's own day. Originally, it was inspired by Virginia Woolf, celebrating a woman's right to her own space. Love that. But with a little modern lens, I think we can all agree that we all need that. A space of our own that uplifts, rejuvenates, supports, and empowers us. Last October, I actually shared a video about creating your own cozy corner and talked about how it was a powerful nervous system regulation practice. You don't need a whole room or a designer budget, but if you haven't already created your sacred space, a little cozy corner, make sure to check out that video for some inspiration. I will link that in the description below too. If you have already created your space, maybe this is the day to freshen it up, to add new elements. Now, lastly, we wrap up the month, January 31st, with Inspire Your Heart with Art Day. Love it! Whatever your preferred media of art is, on the 31st, do that. Experience that. Whether it's a visit to an art gallery, a museum, or theater, check your local area for options. Go to the theater or cinema or a music venue and soak up the art. If you find peace and joy in making art, even if you don't think you're any good at it, dive into some paints, clays, fabrics, words, music, or colors, and just enjoy the whimsy of creating something. Studies have shown that experiencing art, and also in some instances the lack of accessibility to it, has a significant impact on our mental and emotional health. It inspires people to open up about how they feel. Art offers a common ground that fosters community, and especially in older adults, it has been found to increase memory, resilience, and reasoning. And it has been shown that those who engage with or practice art have an increased sense of self-confidence and sense of accomplishment. All right, my friend, as we move through January, I want to remind you that it isn't asking us to rush or to overhaul our lives. It asks us to be honest, to move on purpose, and to integrate what has already changed. It isn't measuring your worth to see how quickly you bounce back or how perfectly you follow through on a plan. If things feel quieter than you expected, that's okay. If your energy feels different than years prior, that's okay. You're not behind or failing on some invisible timeline. You are integrating, allowing your nervous system, your values, and your lived experiences to come into alignment all together. And that rarely is a big, impressive change, but it is more subtle shifts along the way in our day-to-day. But those small shifts change everything. So move gently this month and let your pace be intentional. Let your choices be rooted in what actually supports you now, not who you used to be or who you think you're supposed to become. And trust that the quiet work you're doing now becomes the steadiness that you'll lean on later in this year. Friend, thank you for taking a mindful moment to check in with me. Stay present, stay kind to yourself, and I will see you soon.